Hi, I'm Tim Sales. Today we're going to be talking about network marketing success. Who earns millions, who earns zero, but more important, why? Okay, so this particular video was inspired by an interview that I watched concerning investments, stock investments. And this gentleman is Ray Dalio, and what he said was phenomenal. He goes, the top 1/10 of 1% of the population's net worth is equal to about the bottom 90% combined. I'm going to illustrate this. Okay, so here is the bottom 90% of the US population, and then this is about 9.9%, and then that little tiny thread right there would be the top 0.1%, okay? And their wealth is equal to the bottom 90%. And he calls this the wealth gap, all right? What I really loved is what he said about it. In other words, he was describing what he felt as though was the problem. And he said 22% of the high school population is either disconnected or disengaged. And the reason that spoke to me is because I've been in the industry of network marketing for 30 years. I've taught a network marketing certificate course at the University of Illinois at Chicago, was interviewed by Larry King, consulted a couple of hundred network marketing companies, and have built huge organizations. And so for me, I've been involved and very deep in it, and this nailed it, because it's the same thing that I've seen in the network marketing industry. So what I want to do, if you really, really do want success in network marketing, I didn't glaze over the top of this topic, all right? I really drilled down into it so that you can really get a conceptual understanding of what it takes, okay? So let's dive in. So this right here is a grid that I created, and let me walk you through the levels here. Okay, so these are the columns I'm going to be talking about. This is the ability, right? Everybody knows that there are some people who are bad at network marketing and some people who are elite, and there's levels in between. And if we were in school, the grade would be an F student would be bad, a mediocre student would be D, good student C, excellent would be B, and an elite would be A, okay? And so then over here is this column that I created called relationships, which is basically what does this person do to their relationships. And this is their activity level, this is their knowledge level, and this is the generalized income in that particular category. So let's run through these real quick. So your bad student is unprofessional with relationships. They damage the relationships. They state falsehoods. In other words, they lie, or they make income claims, or they make product claims. They're likely to spam people either by email or by phone or on social media, things like that. That's where you typically see that behavior. The activity level is very low, sometimes sporadic. Their knowledge level is low, and they don't make any money. They lose money, in fact. And they are the ones that typically end up on like 60 Minutes crying and playing victim because they bought inventory and couldn't sell it and they were stuck with it, and poor pitiful me kind of a thing. Those are the people who are typically in that scenario. Let's go to the second one. Your mediocre, your D student, is mostly unprofessional. They harm relationships. This is damage. This harms them. They cause an awkward strain. That's the person who sits at the Thanksgiving dinner and won't shut up about their program, right? And that conversation that just continues and continues, it creates a strain and an awkwardness, and then the other person doesn't want to be around them anymore. All right, so that's typically what happens in that scenario. The activity level is low, they complain a lot, and they provoke trouble. Okay, so it's this particular group that I've noticed, these people are not connected enough to cause problems. These people are connected enough, and so they're the ones that are always going to be pointing to problems, right? So the elite people solve problems, and the D student is the person who's always pointing out problems. They're the ones that are going to point out a typo, right, on a website or something like that. Knowledge level is low. They lack certainty. Okay, this one is a big one for me because they don't know the difference between a pyramid scheme and network marketing, And so they themselves are not even certain about it. They're not certain about their company. They're not certain about the products. They're not certain about a comp plan. So that's what they, in essence, emanate to other people. They can make, and I was generous, they can make up to about $10,000. The next level here, your C student, is going to be frequently professional, good activity level, good knowledge, and they'll make up to about $75,000 a year. Your excellents are mostly professional, high level of activity, high level of knowledge, and make up to about $250,000. And then the difference here of the elite is they're always professional, very high activity level, very high knowledge level, and they make millions. I'd love to know what your experience is. If you can just drop a comment down below and tell me what you think about this. Have you seen the same thing that I've seen? Or maybe if you've seen something different, please put it in the comments down below. All right, so this is great and everything, just to kind of look at it and say, huh, that's interesting. But what I did is that just like what Ray Dalio did, what he did is that he was trying to come up with why. And I have a correlation that I'm going to drop on this side of the screen here, that over the 30 years, I've been able to accumulate this interesting correlation. Let me show this to you. I named it training interest, and it's because I'm typically the trainer in the scenario, right? But you can view it from that you're the trainee as well. So what I'm always looking for is, how interested is the person in training, right? So if they reject training, then they can't get better. But if they absorb training, if they take it and they really study it, then the outcome is quite different. And so on your bad student here, they have no interest. They don't train. Okay, you send them training, they don't do it. You ask them to come to an event, they don't come. The mediocre, they have a low training interest and they complain about training. Remember, these are the ones that provoke trouble. Well, they complain about training. Oh, well, that trainer, that speaker wasn't any good. Or that, it was too long. Or it was too hot in the room. Or whatever it is. They're constantly distracted. They're the people who are on their phone during the training. Or they're not even in the room. They're in the, outside at the tables out there. And they're just hobnobbing with everybody and, shooting selfies and things like that. So if you send a contact something, they'll say, well, I watched some of it. Okay, they won't watch all of it. They don't have the time to do training. And then in that case, the upline must bypass that person if they want to try to salvage the team underneath the person, if they do bring someone in. Okay, so the good person, they have good interest, but it's one-way training. And what I mean by that, they don't relay the information to their team. They just receive it. And they won't rehearse. Okay, so that's a fundamental thing that I've seen that keeps a person under that 100K, is because they don't rehearse, they don't refine, they don't take that content and then say, okay, so I heard it, but now let me see if I can write down this and then get on the whiteboard and sketch it, right? So that's what a person does when they rehearse. And then the excellent people who make $250,000, they're going to rehearse it until they get it right, okay? And which is very good, and it's the reason they make great income. The people who make millions, they're extremely highly interested in training, right? They're obsessed with it. And they rehearse it until they can't do it wrong. And so they're going to sit up there and keep on doing it and keep on doing it, rehearsing it until they've got it cold. They know it. There is no doubt in their mind. And that's the person who comes across with that certainty. All right? So if you were to just take a look, and this should be pretty obvious, but let's say you have 4 students who go to a school or show up in a training. One person comes there and they're there, and that's all. They're there. Okay, so they're sitting back, they watch. They're more interested in what's going on over here, and somebody starts opening a candy wrapper, they're over there looking at what they're eating, and so they're just kind of disconnected, just like what Ray Dalio said. They're disconnected. Then you've got your second student, and that person is engaged. They're there, they're watching, but they don't do anything with it. All right, so they're interested in the topic, but it's more from they want to create an opinion out of it. Well, I got an opinion about it, right? And then that next student is the person who takes notes. They, they think of it in terms of like how they can apply it. And then that other student, that last student, and that's going to be the person who's going to make millions. That's the person who doesn't stop at that training. They're going to take their notes back and they're going to break it down. And then they're going to implement it into their own business. They're going to work with it and, stretch it this way and stretch it that way and try this and try that. And then look at their outcome and kind of debrief on what they need to do better. And then they keep on with iterations of that until they nail it. Okay, so that's the fundamental about what happens to high school students that go on to be billionaires or millionaires, and the other ones are the ones that Ray Dalio was talking about, right? The 22 that are disconnected or disengaged. And so it's not any different in network marketing. And so what I want to do is walk you through something here, because it's very important to me that you really get your hands around the discovery of all of this, all right? Like, how did this come to be in my world? Well, first of all, I want to talk about this concept called the why. Now, most people, when you talk to them, they'll say that the number one most important thing is your why. And I've heard it said, if your why doesn't make you cry, it's not going to motivate you, or something like that. And that versus training interest, which is what I just talked about. Well, my background before was I was in the U.S. Navy Spec Ops in the dive team, and I've seen people drown. Okay, so was it lack of why? I don't know if you've ever held your breath longer than you thought you should. But there's a communication from the inside your body that says, you will find air, right? And but sometimes it's not enough. Why not? Because training. And it's the reason that U.S. Navy Dive School is 22 weeks long, right? Where, you can go get a PADI course for what, like 2 hours? And that's the difference, is the depth of the training. And so that's the reason that for me, it's not why. Why is involved, no question about it, because you got to have a why in order to even be interested in training. But you have to get the training, all right? In high school, I was literally, all right, this isn't generalizing, I was literally the dumbest student in the class, all right? And I knew that because the teacher reminded me of that every test I ever took. I remember this one time where I had a grade of 60. You had to have 69. No, 69 was fail and 70 was a pass, and I had a 24, okay? That gives you some kind of an idea there. I was a disconnected student, no question. All right, so right out of high school, I went into the U.S. Navy. I went into boot camp, and they kind of recruited us in. The Special Operations Group were recruiting from the pool of people who were in boot camp. And so we had to march into this hangar, and we watched this film, and man, were they beating these guys up, all right? And they talked about it. And Spec Ops is made up of Navy SEALs, explosive ordnance disposal, and Navy divers, deep sea divers. And I remember sitting there and just the boldness and the look in their eye, like they had such certainty, they controlled their world and there wasn't any question about it, right? And I wanted that. Okay, so that lets you know that yes, why did matter, no question. But for me to want that, man, it was so out of my league, right? Like that was, there's no way. And that's the same way that a lot of people feel in network marketing. The first person that I watched on a stage, he was making $80,000 a month. And I thought, man, that is so out of my league, right? So I went into Spec Ops. Took me 4 years to get there, continually requesting for it. I finally got it, all right? Knowing that I didn't know, like I knew that I was going to be the dumbest student in this class also, ended up being my greatest asset. All right? Let me tell you why. Because I knew that I had to work harder, so I woke up early. I rehearsed the knots that we had to tie underwater. I would, I remember, continually moving the regulator over the manifold so that I always got that right, because it has to seat up against an O-ring. All right. Now I know I'm giving you specifics, but what I'm doing is that I'm getting you back into my life at that time where I wasn't satisfied with just showing up to the class. I wanted to rehearse it so that I wasn't dumb on the subject, right? So that's the reason that I would wake up early and do whatever it did just to go over it a few more times before class, all right? And so I worked harder, and that ended up being my advantage. In that community, and now I'm really starting to push in on what network marketing is all about here. In that community, training was the culture and still is. And what do I mean by training was the culture, right? Instructors assumed we knew nothing, just as we as leaders should assume that the new person knows nothing, all right? The first people that they cut, and they cut most of the people out of the class, the first people they cut were the arrogant ones. Well, now you would think that it had to do with something else. No, they were just the arrogant ones. And what the instructors later told us is the arrogant people who think they know, they can't learn. And they are constantly the ones who cause problems on the battlefield. And so they were the first ones cut. So what do I mean by training was the culture? We leaned on training, like this table right here. I'm leaning on it. That is what our support was. Okay, so let's say that we've got a guy and he can't quite figure out how to calculate the dive tables. Well, what do we lean on? We lean on training. What else could we lean on? Well, he doesn't have a big enough why. We can't solve that, right? But we can solve training. We can get the guy down and we can sit down and we can just keep doing it over and over and over until that person does it right, and then keep on doing it until he can't do it wrong. And so that's the reason that the entire team was devoted to training. And that's why I say we leaned on training, because there was no other thing that we could lean on that would solve the problem. Okay? So, network marketing. I answered an ad in the newspaper just to try to go to settlement on a house that I'd put money down on, right? And so what I was trying to do was just basically find something that I could do just on a part-time basis so that I could go to settlement. And so I thought, well, I'd sell Cutco knives or something, right? Even though I never sold anything in my life. And the ad, as I went through the Washington Post newspaper at the time, now this is going back like in 1989, every single one of the ads said experience required, 2 years experience required, 4 years experience required. Well, I didn't have any experience. And so, but there was one ad that stuck out. It had these two words, will train, all right? And it was way out of my league, because there was the amount of money that they said that you could make was completely out of my league, right? So what did I lean on? Training. I answered the only ad that said will train. All right, it was like it spoke to me. Because nothing is unknowable. You ever think about that? Like there's nothing unknowable in the whole world. Everything gets better with the right training. If you want to get better at fishing, train. If you want to get better at cooking, train. If you want to get better at videography, my videographer's behind you there, train, right? He trains all the time. He's always getting up, training up on the new gear. And so there's just nothing that if you get the right training that you don't get better at. And now with this, I also have to kind of warn you a little bit. Training is relative. Okay, so like I spoke of earlier, scuba, you can get a scuba certificate in a couple of hours in Bermuda. I did it, right? And versus 20 weeks to be a Navy diver. Well, what's the difference? Well, one teaches you how to blow bubbles. The other one will teach you how to save your buddy's life. He's going to teach you how to, detect exactly what's going on when a person might have some sort of problem coming up after diving, and how to saw your way out of a kelp bed or whatever it is, right? So we learn all those things. And then there's also the pedantic nature of training. And what that means is that if somebody's overly obsessed with the study and doesn't necessarily ever apply it, well, that typically is where a person's just always receiving training and they never apply anything. And so the kind of training that you want to deliver is that kind of training that they can then turn around and implement it into their lives, right? And so then, so this channel that I'm doing right now is to basically share with you what and how I do all of my training. All right, so that way, and I've created a 6 to 7 figure income for the last 27 years. All right, so do me a favor now. This whole thing was a concept so that you could really grasp the deep understanding of why training interest is the only thing that you really in network marketing can lean on. That is what the culture should be around, because I don't know anybody who shows up and who's brand new in network marketing and can do it without some training. All right, in fact, some really good training. And so I was fortunate. Somebody kind of scooped down and helped me, and then I climbed and climbed and climbed to every person that I could find who had really, really good training. And then I implemented some of the same techniques that I got from the military. So what my plan with this training is that I'm going to go through, these are like series that I'm going to be doing. And this by no means is all of them. It's just what I wanted to just share with you, what I'm going to be covering. So the first one is kind of stop the noise. This is the stuff that, number one, can hold back a distributor if they're uncertain about any of these things, like a pyramid scheme, Ponzi scheme, whether or not it's legal, is it ethical, is it professional, things like that, right? So that's just stop the noise. It's kind of what we do day to day with prospects. And so that's number one. Number two is to understand network marketing. I did a training one time with a group of leaders in a company, and it was very interesting to me. They really didn't know what network marketing itself was. They only knew what their company was, and so they had no idea what network marketing actually was. And so, and if you don't know what network marketing is, you can't differentiate it from a pyramid scheme or a Ponzi scheme or an illegal network marketing company or a legal one, right? So, so that's understanding network marketing, and then I'll get into then after that part, because these are the day-to-day actions, and then this is building. How do you build? Right? So I have something called the training runway, where you got to have the right timing to where that you train them enough so they don't plow into the wall. But you've got to get them to flex their wings a little bit to take flight, right? If the runway is too long and they train and train and train and train and train, they'll never get out of that as an occupation. So they'll be professional networkers who never make a penny. And then just like what to do, and then what are my daily actions, right? So like I have had the same daily actions for around 29 years. Then so they really, really are the daily actions that make money. And then generating leads, what to say it, how to follow up, and then how to start new reps. And then of course there's leadership. And as the very, very old book says, that there are no bad teams, only bad leaders. And I have seen that again and again and again. The leader is the one who sets the standards. What's the performance of the daily actions? What do they do? And so you set that standard, you get everybody to it, and then you raise the standard and get everybody to it and you raise the standard. All right, and so there's techniques in how do you go about doing that. And so so you just keep on repeating that. So this is what I'm going to be covering. If you have training interest, then I highly recommend that you subscribe to the channel. When you hit the subscribe button, also click the little bell so that you get notified when I come out with new videos. And then most of all, I really want you to comment down below. Give me subjects that you want me to cover, because I love those. And then I like to read like what you thought of different parts of what I covered here, because it helps me articulate it better next time or whatever. So regardless, I so appreciate you watching the video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Hey, did you like this video? if you did, share it with your teammates. The more people that we can get to understand that we lean on training, the better the whole industry is going to be. And so, and also you, how about you? What's your training interest? Please comment down below and let me know.